Hello, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Let's start the second part of the episode. Please like and subscribe the channel. Courtroom air felt heavy enough to crush every person seated inside it. Not a single cough echoed. Not one chair squeaked. Even the reporters, usually frantic and restless, held themselves still as though movement alone might set off another explosion. At the center of the storm sat Kody Brown, rigid at the defense table, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked painful. Beside him, Robin dabbed trembling fingers beneath her eyes, while Meri stared at the polished floor like she wished it would open and swallow her whole. Then came the whisper. Kody leaned slightly toward Meri, lips barely moving, muttering something nobody else in the courtroom could hear. Whatever he said struck her like lightning. Meri slowly rose from her chair. The movement looked painfully deliberate, as though every step toward the witness stand carried years of regret chained to her ankles. Her shoulders sagged beneath invisible weight. Her breathing trembled. The entire gallery watched her cross the room while the silence deepened into something suffocating. She placed one shaking hand on the Bible. Her voice cracked faintly as she swore the oath. Then she sat. The plaintiff's attorney approached carefully, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. "Mrs. Brown," she began, calm but razor-sharp, "records show that mailbox 1124 was leased under your name. Do you deny that?" Meri swallowed. "No," she whispered. "I rented it." The answer swept through the courtroom like a cold wind. Christine's eyes narrowed instantly. Janelle folded her arms tighter. Robin looked down into her lap. The lawyer took another step forward. "And why would you rent a mailbox that later became connected to secret accounts, anonymous letters, and hidden financial transfers?" Meri's fingers twisted together. "Because Kody asked me to." Gasps exploded through the gallery. Christine jerked backward in disbelief. Janelle muttered something under her breath. Robin froze. At the defense table, Kody's face darkened with rage. The attorney allowed the reaction to settle before continuing. "You are testifying under oath that Mr. Brown instructed you to lease that mailbox?" "Yes." Meri's eyes filled with tears. "He said it was only for convenience. He told me it helped separate important paperwork. He said not to ask questions." The lawyer paced slowly before the jury. "And you obeyed?" Meri looked down. "For years." The courtroom hummed with whispers. The attorney stopped directly in front of the witness stand. "Did you personally place items inside the mailbox?" Meri hesitated. Her gaze flicked toward Kody, then downward again. "Yes," she admitted softly. "But not what people think." Christine suddenly leaned forward. "Then what was it?" she snapped bitterly. Meri's voice broke apart. "Letters." The room stilled. "Letters that were already there when I opened the box. Sometimes Kody handed me envelopes and told me to drop them off. Other times there were already packages waiting inside." "Did you read them?" "No." "Why not?" Meri's tears spilled freely now. "Because I trusted him." The words landed harder than any scream. A painful silence followed. The attorney softened her tone. "Mrs. Brown, are you saying your husband used you to hide things from the rest of the family?" Meri looked utterly shattered. "I thought I was helping him protect us," she whispered. "I thought I was being loyal. But now I think I was just carrying secrets I never understood." Kody exploded. "That's a lie." His fist slammed against the defense table with a violent crack. "You knew exactly what you were doing." The judge struck her gavel instantly. "Mr. Brown, control yourself." Kody leaned back in his chair, breathing hard, fury radiating from every inch of him. Meri wiped at her tears. "I wanted to believe him," she whispered, "even when part of me knew something was wrong." The plaintiff's attorney stepped closer. "One final question. Do you know who wrote the letters?" Meri shook her head frantically. "No, but they weren't mine." Her voice dropped lower. "Every time I opened that box, something was already waiting there." The jury exchanged uneasy glances. The attorney nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney stood immediately. "Mrs. Brown," he said smoothly, "isn't it true that no one forced you to rent the mailbox? No one physically forced you to participate?" Meri stared at him through wet eyes. Then came the sentence that seemed to stop the room itself. "Isn't trust its own kind of coercion?" Even the defense attorney fell silent. The judge slowly lowered her gaze. The witness may step down. Meri returned to her seat trembling. Christine looked at her with devastation etched across her face. Janelle refused to meet her eyes. Only Robin reached toward her carefully, laying a hesitant hand against her shoulder. Kody remained motionless, but his eyes burned with betrayal and rage. The courtroom had barely absorbed Meri's confession before the judge called the next witness, Kody Brown. The room seemed to inhale all at once. Christine rose slowly. Unlike Meri, she did not appear broken. She appeared furious. Every movement was precise. Every step toward the witness stand radiated determination. She swore the oath in a clear, unwavering voice. When she sat down, she never once looked toward Kody. The plaintiff's attorney approached. "Mrs. Brown, can you describe your marriage in the years leading up to this case?" Christine let out a long breath. "It wasn't a marriage," she said coldly. The gallery stirred. It was a performance. Kody's expression darkened instantly. Christine continued. He wanted photographs, smiles, public appearances. He wanted obedience. Her eyes sharpened. But behind closed doors, affection became a weapon. If I disagreed with him, suddenly I was invisible. The room fell silent again. He controlled attention the same way other people control money. The lawyer nodded carefully. "When did you first suspect financial misconduct?" Christine's jaw tightened. "The night I found the receipt." Kody shifted in his chair. "A cashier's check from a hidden account. It wasn't addressed to me. Or Janelle. Or Meri." She looked directly toward the jury. "It was written to a property manager for a house none of us knew existed." The courtroom erupted into horrified whispers. The judge slammed her gavel repeatedly. "Order." Christine leaned forward. "When I confronted him, he claimed it was for the family." Her voice shook with fury. But the paperwork only listed Robin. Robin covered her mouth. Christine pointed toward the defense table. "That house wasn't for all of us. It was for them." Kody clenched his fists. The attorney spoke gently. "Do you have proof?" Christine reached into a thick folder. She pulled out stacks of copied documents, bank statements, property deeds, transfer confirmations. "I copied these because I knew someday he'd try to erase me." Her voice cracked for the first time. "These records show family funds diverted into secret accounts." The jury leaned closer. "Money intended for our children." A wave of gasps swept through the room. Janelle whispered angrily beneath her breath. Christine continued. "He told us we were equal partners. But in the end, there was only one real wife." Kody suddenly shot halfway out of his chair. "You're bitter," he shouted. His attorney grabbed his arm. "You're twisting everything because you couldn't accept my decisions." Christine finally turned toward him. Her eyes blazed. "Decisions?" she snapped. "You built an entire life behind our backs. You stole trust, money, years of our lives, and then expected silence." The gallery exploded into whispers again. "You are not the victim here, Kody." Her voice shook with years of buried pain. "You are the architect of this destruction." The judge called for order again. Christine faced forward once more. The attorney asked quietly, "What do you want from this trial?" Christine's eyes filled with tears. "I want the truth exposed." The courtroom became completely still. "I want my children to know I wasn't crazy. I want them to understand why everything felt cold for so many years." She swallowed hard. "And I want the lies burned down so nobody else has to live inside them." No one moved. Not even the reporters. The attorney nodded slowly. No further questions. Christine stood. But before returning to her seat, she looked directly at Kody one last time. "You spent years trying to silence me," she said quietly. "But when you pushed me away, you taught me how to survive without you." Kody glared back at her with pure hatred. And for the first time since the trial began, the balance of power inside the courtroom shifted. The court recessed briefly, but the tension never faded. When everyone returned to their seats, the atmosphere felt even darker. Because next came Janelle. And unlike Christine's fire, Janelle carried ice. She approached the witness stand with terrifying calm. Her posture remained perfectly straight. her expression unreadable. She swore the oath without hesitation and placed a thick binder onto her lap. The plaintiff's attorney approached carefully. "Mrs. Brown, could you explain your role in the family finances?" Janelle nodded. "I managed budgets, accounts, long-term planning." The lawyer paused. "And during your review of those finances, did you notice irregularities?" "Yes." Janelle opened the binder. Pages rustled softly. At first the amounts were small. Unexplained transfers. Missing balances. She turned another page. "Then I found a payment exceeding 5 figures made to a woman connected to the family." Christine frowned. Meri looked confused. Janelle continued. "She disappeared shortly afterward." The courtroom stiffened. "But months later, I saw her name attached to another transaction." The attorney stepped closer. "You're testifying that family funds were used as hush money?" "Yes." Janelle's tone never changed. "And I believe those payments were connected to the mailbox, the hidden accounts, and the letters." Kody slammed both hands against the table. "That's absurd." Janelle looked directly at him. "I have your signature on the receipts." Silence. Absolute silence. "And I traced the money back to accounts intended for household expenses and childcare." The jury looked visibly disturbed. The defense attorney rose. "Objection. Speculation." Overruled. The judge replied instantly. Janelle calmly flipped to another section. "It wasn't one payment," she said. "There were many." She looked toward the jury. "Over $200,000 disappeared." Christine whispered in horror. Meri covered her mouth. Robin began openly crying. Janelle's voice remained steady. "Numbers don't lie. People do." The statement sliced through the room harder than any scream. And as she stepped away from the witness stand, the courtroom realized the trial had evolved into something far more dangerous than scandal. It had become a war. The courtroom had already unraveled once, but nobody was prepared for what happened next. The judge adjusted her glasses while the gallery buzzed with anxious whispers. Reporters leaned across rows scribbling headlines before testimony had even resumed. Christine sat rigid with fury. Janelle remained cold and unreadable. Meri looked emotionally hollow. Robin quietly wept at the far end of the bench. And Kody sat motionless. Not calm, not composed. Motionless in the way a volcano appears still before eruption. The judge lifted her gavel. "The court will now proceed with the next witness." Before the attorney could speak, the rear courtroom doors opened. Every head turned. The hinges groaned loudly through the silence. Then came the gasp. A woman stepped into the courtroom. Late 40s. Pale. Reserved. Familiar. For one frozen heartbeat, nobody believed what they were seeing. Because according to everything they knew, she was dead. The gallery erupted. Reporters shot to their feet. Christine gripped Janelle's arm. Meri looked physically ill. Robin dropped her tissue onto the floor. And Kody's face drained completely of color. The judge pounded her gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in this courtroom." The attorney rose slowly. "Your Honor, the plaintiffs call Miss Elaine Walker." The woman approached the witness stand carefully. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes carried something harder. Resolve. She swore the oath in a steady voice and sat. The courtroom became deathly quiet. The attorney spoke first. "Miss Walker, would you explain your connection to the Brown family?" Elaine inhaled deeply. "I was close to them for years. I knew their children, their finances, their private lives." She glanced briefly toward Kody. "Until the day I disappeared." The attorney nodded. "Why did everyone believe you were dead?" Elaine's fingers tightened together. "Because I made them believe it." Gasps spread through the room. "I vanished intentionally." Her eyes lowered. "It was the only way I knew to escape." "Escape what?" Elaine looked directly at Kody. "The things he asked me to do." The courtroom detonated into noise. The judge hammered the gavel. "Order." Elaine continued once silence returned. "He gave me letters to hold, documents to hide. He told me they protected the family." Her voice cracked. But they weren't protection. She swallowed hard. They were confessions. Christine stared at Kody in disbelief. Janelle's expression hardened further. Robin cried silently. The attorney stepped closer. What happened when you tried to leave? Elaine's breathing became shaky. He warned me there would be consequences if I spoke publicly. The room grew colder. So I disappeared first. Kody suddenly exploded. She's lying. He shot to his feet. This is insanity. The judge slammed her gavel. Sit down immediately, Mr. Brown. His chest heaved violently before he collapsed back into his chair. Elaine continued speaking. Before I vanished, I arranged for copies of the letters to surface if anything happened to me. The jury leaned forward. I wanted the truth to survive even if I didn't. Christine rose halfway from her chair. You knew all along? Her voice shook with fury. You let us live inside those lies? Elaine's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to survive. Janelle placed a restraining hand on Christine's arm before she could continue. The attorney addressed the judge. Your Honor, we request that Miss Walker's testimony and preserved letters be entered into evidence. So admitted. The gavel struck. The jury looked stunned. The courtroom whispered like a storm. Then Kody leaned forward slowly. His voice dropped into something low and venomous. You should have stayed dead. The gallery gasped loudly. Even the judge appeared shaken. Elaine froze. The tension in the room turned electric. And then came the next blow. Call your next witness. The attorney stood. The plaintiffs call Robin Brown. Christine closed her eyes instantly. Janelle's jaw tightened. Meri looked terrified. Robin seemed unable to breathe. Kody leaned toward her urgently, whispering into her ear. But this time she pulled away. For the first time during the trial, she refused him. The judge motioned toward the stand. Robin rose on trembling legs. She recited the oath in a cracked whisper before collapsing into the witness chair. Her tears had already begun. The attorney approached carefully. Mrs. Brown, you have heard testimony regarding hidden accounts, secret property, and concealed letters. Robin squeezed her eyes shut. What did you know? I didn't want to know, she cried. But you did know. Robin broke. Yes. The room inhaled sharply. Christine slammed her palm against the table. I knew it. The judge called for order. The attorney pressed forward. What exactly did you know? Robin's voice shook violently. I knew about the house. I knew about the account. She wiped tears desperately. He said it was for our future. He told me the others wouldn't understand. Christine rose halfway from her seat. So you lied while the rest of us suffered? Sit down, Mrs. Brown, the judge barked. Christine obeyed reluctantly. The attorney continued. Did you know about the letters? Robin hesitated. Not at first. She trembled harder. But later, yes. The courtroom went silent again. He read one to me once. Her voice cracked apart. He said it was guidance. But it sounded like a confession. Janelle looked physically sick. Robin buried her face in her hands. When I questioned him, he told me never to ask again. The attorney softened her voice. Why didn't you come forward? Robin sobbed openly. Because I was afraid. The words barely escaped her. He said if I betrayed him, I'd lose everything. The jury watched in silence. And I believed him. The attorney paused before asking the final question. Do you now admit that you participated in hiding the truth from the other wives? Robin slowly lifted her tear-stained face. Yes. A whisper shattered through the room. I was part of it. Christine looked devastated. Meri shook her head slowly. Janelle stared forward like carved stone. Kody suddenly leapt to his feet. She doesn't mean that. His voice thundered. She's upset. She's confused. She's loyal to me. Robin turned toward him. For the first time in years, there was no fear in her eyes. Not anymore. The silence afterward felt endless. She stepped down from the witness stand and deliberately sat far away from Kody. The physical distance between them seemed larger than the entire courtroom. And everyone knew the final collapse was coming. Because next, Kody himself would testify. The courtroom did not recover after Robin's confession. It merely endured. The atmosphere felt poisoned. Heavy. Dangerous. Reporters shuffled papers nervously. Jurors exchanged uncertain glances. Christine sat rigid with fury burning behind her eyes. Janelle kept her binder open in front of her like a loaded weapon. Meri looked emotionally exhausted. Robin remained isolated at the far edge of the bench. And Kody sat completely still. His face had hardened into something unreadable. The judge finally cleared her throat. This court will now hear testimony from Mr. Kody Brown. The gallery erupted into whispers instantly. Kody rose. He buttoned his jacket with jerky, aggressive movements. Then he walked toward the witness stand like a man marching into battle. He swore the oath loudly, almost defiantly. When he sat down, his spine remained stiff and his fists clamped tightly against the chair. The defense attorney approached first. Mr. Brown, he began carefully, would you explain why certain financial accounts and transfers were created? Kody leaned forward. Everything about him radiated anger barely held together. I did what I had to do for my family. His voice boomed through the room. Every account. Every transfer. Every decision. Christine laughed bitterly. Safe for who? She snapped. The judge struck the gavel. Mrs. Brown, enough. Kody ignored the interruption. You all act like you understand the pressure I carried, he barked. You think it's easy being responsible for everyone? His voice grew louder. No one appreciated the sacrifices I made. Janelle stared at him coldly. Meri looked away. Robin cried silently. Kody pointed toward the plaintiff's table. You only see what you want to see. None of you understand leadership. The attorney asked cautiously, then why were the accounts hidden? Because they would have panicked. He slammed one fist against the witness stand. They questioned everything. Every decision. Every move. Somebody had to take control. Christine rose again. Control? Her voice shook with fury. You drained family accounts for a secret life. Kody wheeled toward her. You were impossible to deal with. The courtroom exploded into overlapping shouts. The judge hammered the gavel repeatedly. Enough. One more outburst, and I'll clear this courtroom. Silence finally returned. The defense attorney quickly redirected. Mr. Brown, did you intentionally deceive your wives? Kody's expression darkened. No. The attorney nodded. And the hidden property? It was an investment. Christine scoffed loudly. For Robin. Kody glared at her. You're jealous. That word changed everything. Christine stood fully now. Jealous, she repeated. Her voice cracked with disbelief. You abandoned us emotionally, financially, and spiritually, and now you call it jealousy? The judge tried to interrupt. But Christine kept going. We gave you decades of our lives. Her voice echoed through the courtroom. We raised children together while you built another future behind locked doors. Kody shot back to his feet. I carried this family. No, Christine screamed. You controlled it. The courtroom descended into chaos. Reporters stood. The gallery shouted. Jurors looked overwhelmed. The judge pounded the gavel over and over. Order. Finally, security moved closer. Kody's chest rose and fell violently. The attorney attempted to regain control. Mr. Brown, did you ever threaten Elaine Walker? Kody froze. The silence became immediate. His jaw flexed. No. The attorney raised a document. Then how do you explain this message? The courtroom screens illuminated. A text message appeared. If you talk, you'll regret it. Signed beneath it, Kody. Gasps erupted everywhere. Kody's face twisted with fury. That's taken out of context. The attorney pressed harder. And this. Another message appeared. Keep the letters hidden. Nobody can know. The jury stared openly now. Kody's breathing turned ragged. You don't understand, he shouted. The defense attorney tried to intervene. But the damage was already done. Christine stared at him with tears in her eyes. After everything, she whispered. Janelle slowly closed her binder. Meri bowed her head. Robin openly sobbed. Kody looked around the courtroom desperately. At the judge. At the jury. At the women who once defended him. But nobody moved. Nobody rescued him. The attorney stepped forward one final time. Mr. Brown, did you knowingly manipulate members of your family into concealing financial activity and secret correspondence? Kody opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The silence stretched. Then finally, I did what I thought was necessary. The words sounded hollow. Defeated. The attorney nodded slowly. No further questions. The judge looked exhausted. The jury appeared shaken beyond words. And the courtroom itself felt permanently changed. Because the truth had finally surfaced. Not cleanly, not peacefully, but violently. Every secret, every betrayal, every buried confession, now lived in the open. Kody remained seated at the witness stand long after questioning ended. He no longer looked furious. He looked cornered, broken. The empire he spent years controlling had collapsed in front of the entire world. Christine sat with tears shining in her eyes, but her spine perfectly straight. Janelle remained composed. Meri looked emotionally numb. Robin stared down at her hands, unable to face anyone. And Elaine Walker watched silently from the gallery, the ghost who had returned to destroy the lies. The judge finally raised her gavel one last time. This court stands adjourned until tomorrow morning. The crack echoed through the room. But nobody stood immediately. Nobody spoke. Because the trial had become more than testimony. It had become the destruction of an entire illusion. And everyone inside that courtroom understood the same terrifying truth. Nothing would ever be the same again.